British Society of Criminology Hate Crime Network, bringing the issues of hate crime to the forefront.
Welcome back to another British Society of Criminology Hate Crime Network podcast. Now, we've all seen memes scrolling through our feeds, but have you ever stopped to consider them as a weapon? Today's guest argues that the far right isn't just typing out manifestos, they are building a visual culture, one that hijacks ancient history and folklore to radicalize a new generation.
Joining us is Dr. Ashton Kingdon, author of the World Wide Web. Ashton has analysed over 20,000 memes to uncover how white supremacy moved from the fringes of history into the digital mainstream. Today, we're diving into the memification of extremism, the ethics of researching digital trauma, and how we can protect our online spaces. Ashton, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. So excited to finally get on the podcast.
So let's dive straight in. What inspired you to research online far-right groups and to later write the World Wide Web?
So the World Wide Web is my doctoral work. So it was my thesis. So I spent 4 years undercover online as a white supremacist, ranging from pretty much every group you can imagine: neo-Nazis, the Klan, tradwives, eco-fascists, QAnon. There was a lot of different subcultures I was in. And I am absolutely obsessed with propaganda. So previously to the far right, I spent time in ISIS networks. So I was really interested in the way that imagery and technologies accelerate the radicalization process. I've always been obsessed with propaganda. I've always been interested in how it's been effective. So the Nazis, for example, being able to kind of bypass rational thinking and appeal to people's emotions. And once you get people to react emotionally rather than thinking critically, it's much more easy to control their ideas and narratives. So I was really interested in propaganda, but more so how technology was accelerated it, and particularly for me, image-based propaganda. So I have done studies where I've looked at some text, but it's rare for me. I usually just focus primarily on audiovisual content.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I think, you said it's the basis of your PhD, you then published a book on it. And in the introduction to this book, you argue that white supremacy has deep historical roots that actually predate digital culture. So how does this historical perspective maybe reshape how we think about online radicalization?
Yeah, so I did my PhD in electronics and computer science, but it was actually interdisciplinary. So I had a supervisor from criminology, history and computer science. So it's merging the three to talk about how interdisciplinary research is so effective for trying to understand these huge socio-technical problems. So in the book, I really argue that obviously the internet did not create white supremacy. It didn't create the far right, but in a way it's kind of supercharged it. So from the historical perspective in the book, I look at ancient Greece and Rome, like anti-Semitism in the Middle Ages in England, the Crusades, the Rurik dynasty in Russia, the antebellum South, the Volkish movement. So all these kind of historical periods to argue that online radicalization now, and particularly through imagery, exploits this kind of centuries-old hatred and repackage the narratives for a new generation. So the whole book is really about alt histories, right? The weaponization of history, the cherry-picking of specific facts. And the far right have consistently mined and exploited historical narratives and symbols as a way to make their ideology feel legitimate, timeless, and culturally rooted. So it's giving their modern ideas a kind of veneer of historical authority. And I think it's really important, and the book really talks about this, that you can't just delete an ideology. You can't just tech your way out of it, content moderation your way out of it. Like, this is ideas and caricatures and symbols and visuals and narratives that have existed for centuries, if not millennia. So content moderation is not enough to be able to stop that. So I think a key point of the book is that this isn't something you can tech your way out of anymore. What's happening today is a manifestation of historical and unresolved racism, anti-Semitism. It's not something that is new.
Your book explores how far-right groups appropriate ancient history and folklore. Can you share an example of how that works and why it's effective?
Yeah, I have actually got a contemporary example, so this won't be in the book. But so in the book, I talk a lot about the occult, the far right and the occult, the Nazis and the occult, and the folklore and mystical components of Nazi ideology and how they are weaponized today. So I've got a really good example of this that's happened to me recently. So in my module that I teach at Southampton, Techno Harms, the students' assignment is that they have to analyse a meme. So that is what they do. They pick a meme that has to do with some sort of ideology or political election or something. And they have to tell me what the message is within that meme, what the inherent message is, what the overarching message is there anything hidden in there? And that's where their marks come from. And of course, when you get your assignments in, and I had 167 students, you don't know who they are, everything's anonymous. But I did find that out of 167 memes, there are about 30 that were relating to Agatha, Hyperborea, this idea of the thrill. And it was all kind of interlinking with gaming platforms. And I obviously knew from looking at it immediately that it's straight up Nazi occult, like links to Hyperborea, Madame Blavatsky, the Aryan race. But of course, the students could not identify any of this, right? They're talking about the gaming, like the use of different songs, the audio visuals together, Clash Royale. And I was thinking, this is really interesting because none of them are picking up on this. And then when you release the marks, you see who the students are. And I asked one of them, I was like, what is this bro can't handle the thrill? And he's like, oh yeah, we just find it on our Instagrams the whole time. And once I actually sat down and explained, and I was like, these are the pictures from here, this is what this means, like none of them had any idea what they were looking at. And I think that's a really good example now of loads of young people being exposed to, insidious, ancient, historical, white supremacist narratives, but it's packaged within gaming culture, getting into people's feeds without them knowing what it is. They're engaging with problematic hashtags around white supremacist pseudoscience without actually realizing that they're engaging with pseudoscience. And when I actually explained what it meant, they were horrified. But I think it's a really good example that what the book really talks about is hashtag concordance. So the ability for normal hashtags to overlap with problematic hashtags through the algorithm, and then you're being exposed to things you don't necessarily realize that is problematic. So now all of these young men that were in my class are looking at this extreme Aryan pseudoscience Nazi content under the guise of it's just gaming, and not knowing that they're looking at that. And yeah, it's a really good example of how they weaponize all of these weird, niche kind of pseudoscientific ideas, make them really fun. And like they always combine it with a techno version of the Land Down Under and do like Hollow Earth, and it's all like using monster cans and stuff. And yeah, it's a really good way that they can get that across. I think that's a good example.
Yeah, and I guess it shows the power of, we often think, oh, how can anyone be radicalized online? But it's exactly that, isn't it? It's
yeah, was there not knowing? I was like, listen to me. It's like, this is full on Madame Blavatsky right here. I was like, see that picture? That's straight up from the Fool Society. So they just didn't have any idea that they were engaging with this stuff. And then when they're all saying like, bro can't handle the thrill, I'm like, stop saying that phrase. Like, please.
No, it's scary, isn't it? And I'm really interested in, your methodological choices when you're looking at this research. You said your research drew on 20,000 internet memes. And I wonder, what were some of the biggest methodological challenges you faced in analysing this kind of content?
Yeah, there were probably more than 20,000, but you have to kind of narrow to a ballpark because, like, when you do samples that are... Sometimes I do data and it is the actual sample, like 4,302. It's much more difficult to work with. So there were actually more. So there's 20,000 that I sort of couched for the book. And then for my actual doctoral work, I used 3,500 as a subset to show the themes. But I think when you're dealing with that quantity, it is just about space, how you store them, how you analyze them. I think one of the main criticisms with this type of work is it is always going to have your bias of what you see, what you think is coming out of it. And you can't replicate that sort of work, right? So, that's the classic one that comes up in reviews. Like, you can't do intercoder reliability, and because of ethical reasons of exposing other people to that content, you can't have a coder code the same narratives and things. So I think there's always the opportunity for bias with that, as well as it not being able to be repeated, and publishing that content. Can you publish it? What do you do with your data set? Can you give it to someone? Can you expose anyone else to that? So I think particularly with imagery, there's a lot of sensitive conversations to be had about how you convey your results in a way that is appropriate and doesn't harm audiences that might be looking at it. So yeah, I think when you're doing visuals, obviously you've got the practical elements of how you find and store that, how you would even analyze it. I mean, mine was so old school analysis. I cannot stand computational assistance I just don't like it. It's just my personal choice to do it myself, which obviously takes so much more time. And I was properly old school. I had these huge sheets of A3 and I would move the memes around, print them and move them with blue tack and sticking them into thematic places. And I remember I went to my computer science supervisor and I had them rolled up in this tube. And he was like, "What methodology is this?" And I was like, "It's paper and glue." Welcome to the Stone Age. So yeah, I think that there are conversations to be had about analysis. I also manually collect all of my data. I do not scrape. So again, you've got the added time that it takes you to observe and get that content. And then, with visuals, a lot of it's about snapshots of time because you're not on it constantly. And yeah, there's a lot of methodological issues, I think, that come into that type of research.
And what would you say are the ethical responsibilities of researchers working with extremist material, especially imagery that could be harmful or traumatic?
You mean when it comes to exposing the audiences?
And also exposing audiences and like you said, sharing the results with others.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So I don't share my data. I haven't published my corpuses except for one, but that was very tame and it's behind my university's wall. So people have to contact me and I will say if they can have access to it or not. So I think there's responsibilities with you publishing it. So I know that some colleagues of mine just won't publish anything. I do publish with images because I do such intricate symbolic work that you need to be able to show what it looks like in order for it to be effective. So for me, there's ways of releasing that in a way that has content warnings, but also isn't the most overt, but it shows the symbols, etc. So there's definitely conversations to have about that. Luckily, memes are uncopyrightable. So you can publish memes without consent, which is obviously then, if you had to get consent, that would open up a whole new realm of potential difficulties. But yeah, I think there are conversations to be had, and these go wider than publications in academic routes, right? So if you're at conferences, should you have, I've been at conferences where people have shown the headings and, it's just not needed. You can tell the class they do beheadings without showing a beheading, or you can tell the audience. So I think there's a very fine line between being able to talk about a narrative, or like me, for example, if I need to talk and show the audience a fash wave aesthetic, I have to show them an example of the fash wave aesthetic, or people can't imagine what that looks like. So for me, I'm very much in the middle. I appreciate that there are some people that do not show anything, and I understand why. For me, I show moderated versions, we'll say, of examples so that I can say my points and I keep my data private.
Which I think is really important for protecting yourself as well as others, isn't it? So I want to return maybe to thinking a little bit about the use of memes and, your choice to use memes within your research. So how do memes function differently from text in spreading ideological messages online?
Yeah, I think that I've kind of moved over recent years more to audio visuals, so TikTok, but I think they function very similarly. So I'm obsessed with memes and their ability to communicate narratives. And I think that the benefit is that they communicate things instantaneously. So they can deliver complex ideological positions in an instantaneous way that doesn't require you to read and decode that, right? So that's one of the reasons why I think that's effective. So they can bypass critical thinking. And as I was mentioning at the beginning, one of the things I talk about when I talk about the success of the Nazi Party is that there wasn't just the whole nation of people engaging with Die Stürmer and like the horrendous anti-Semitic overt caricatures. It was the lovely nature eco-fascist based ones that were emotionally appealing to the nation about unification of Germany and all of this that was more impactful. So I think that memes are much better at getting to the emotion, right? So they get into the viewer's consciousness without them being able to evaluate the argument. Whereas if you're reading a manifesto, there's much more critical thinking going on. Often you're seeing them fuse music, words, imagery together. And I think that TikTok's use of music is very, very important, and TikTok also ranks off of that. So I think that that's very, very dangerous. So all the work I'm doing at the moment is about how dangerous the songs are on TikTok, because memes can be framed as jokes and I was just joking, I didn't realize what I was sharing. It gives people a plausible deniability for sharing extreme content or making extreme content. And this irony really allows for really problematic ideologies to be normalized in a way that you could not get away with direct text, like especially if it's coming from the political sphere, right? Because they're so easy to transfer, you just share memes constantly. Like when I start talking about images to my students, I'm like, how many times a day do you share a meme or an audio visual, rather than saying, I found this article, have you seen it, right? People share memes constantly. And as I was mentioning, when you're sharing text, it requires effort to engage with it. The less people are going to read things than they're going to watch things. I think that's really important. As a like community aspects, belonging, reinforcing like ideological identity through in-group, out-group dynamics. Memes mutate constantly, which allows ideological messages to be constantly adapted and remixed. So I think that that's really important, and they can remain culturally relevant, right? So I think that one of the most important things is about how easy it is to transfer problematic ideologies through imagery, allowing, dangerous ideas to spread really, really quickly. And I think that's one of the reasons I think they're really dangerous.
Many people think of the far right as fringe. What does your research show about the connection between fringe imagery and mainstream narratives?
Yeah, so I guess in the book, the idea of mainstreaming, in addition to alt history and socio-technical components of radicalization, is probably one of the main themes. So I took inspiration from some colleagues of mine, Aaron Winter and Aurélien Mondon. He wrote a book called Reactionary Democracy a few years ago now. It's amazing, highly recommend. So in their book, they have a framework, a liberal forms of racism. So I applied their framework to symbols and imagery, and it works really well. So I think that one of the key arguments that I make in the book is that the far right is not fringe and it's never been fringe. The mainstream makes it possible, right? So I have a specific chapter in the book where it's called Memeing Moonlight and Magnolias, and it's about the weaponization of really horrible anti-Black caricatures and symbols, but couched within this moonlight and magnolia mythology. So this idea of Southern heritage and pride, and it's all these beautiful plantations in the moonlight, very like Princess and the Frog, you know, like New Orleans, that kind of vibe. And I think that one of the things that is constantly reinforced in the book through the way that these symbols are repackaged and used now is that white supremacist ideology didn't like crawl into the mainstream on its own. It was carried there by the media, politicians, all of our institutions. And that's something that in the past, in the antebellum South, it was the mainstream that made that possible. And it's very similar today. So I think that that's a really important component of it, as well as so the coded symbols and the historical imagery are a really good way that the far right can make really extreme fringe ideas feel culturally familiar and legitimate. And like Aaron and Aurelian talk about this, like reinforcing the idea that racist ideas have been promoted not just through far right activism, but also through the everyday language. And they use examples of like immigration and identity and mainstream politics. So I think that the argument I was making is that memes are a really good way of bridging the fringe to like the dinner table, right? So like loads of my friends would be like, oh, have you seen this TikTok about the migrant hotels? Can you believe that people are coming here and taking the NHS? Like, it's a way that allows people to converse with these really extreme ideas that would obviously be really extreme in any other connotation, but because it's through TikTok or memes, it's not treated like that. But it's also the idea that calling it fringe in itself, calling these ideas, these memes fringe, you know, these symbols fringe, is also part of the problem. And that focusing on the most extreme forms draws attention away from all of the problems that are happening in the mainstream to do with racism, anti-Semitism, anti-migration. It lets the mainstream off the hook because it's being constantly positioned as something that's coming from the fringe, from the Klan, from the neo-Nazis, from the alt-right. And a lot of the time it's not. It's coming from mumfluencer communities on Instagram. It's coming from tradwife communities, like mums that are like championing eco-fascist ideas and neo-Malthusianism without actually realizing what they're doing, right? It's not in some shady corner of the dark web. It's in the Facebook groups. It's in the Instagram communities. And I think that what I tried to do in the book is take this argument and then mix the history in to show the idea that if white supremacy has these roots that go back millennia, centuries, etc., then treating it as something that is an internet phenomenon and a modern day issue really kind of gets away from how embedded it is in the mainstream, right? So again, it's about, we can't just more moderate our way out of this. It's not something that's emerged with technology. So we can't just over-tech our way out and say, well, technologically deterministic idea that if we clamp down on it through tech, it's going to stop, because it's always been there. And the internet has just massively accelerated the rate at which these ideas are getting into mainstream communities because people are talking about it in their families now, like that they probably wouldn't have done before the internet.
So you mentioned obviously, and what was really interesting actually was not being able to out-moderate or out-tech our way out of responding to this. And I want to think a little bit more about how we respond to this problem. And maybe if we start in terms of whether it's policy or platform governance, you know, a lot of us work in the area of online and we're always battling between, I guess, the opposition, which always says that we shouldn't be able to curtail our right on freedom of expression, and to a point, I agree. But what practical steps do you think can help counter actually this far-right extremist online propaganda without maybe overstepping and infringing on freedom of expression?
Yeah, I'm really negative about this. So as you know, Rachel, my my work tends to bash down quite hard on regulation. So I think it's hard. I think that I personally feel like we have moved way too quickly that humans no longer have control over this. I just think the idea that tech is going to help us is redundant. It's not going to happen. I do not think it's effective. I do not think that the rate in which AI, Gen AI, imagery, videos, TikToks, Instagrams, propaganda campaigns are moving have any ability for humans to be able to take control of this anymore as a human moderator, which is often what you need for all of this coded and cloaked stuff. Yes, you can use AI to combat more of the official terroristic content, CSAM, things like that. But I think that for this content, you do need human moderators to determine whether or not it's offensive. Also, there's a huge gap of lawful but awful content that isn't under the regulation. We were going to have that in the Online Safety Act. It got removed by the Tories, because of this freedom of expression idea. So I think it's really hard. I think that perceptual hashing works quite well for the more extreme content that you can actually badge. I think that there are people doing great things with shadow banning. I don't think deplatforming really works because people just move somewhere else. So for me, because I've often argued that I think we've moved at a pace that obviously humans no longer have control over, the focus really needs to be on more digital literacy so that people can make informed choices about the content that they're seeing and then realize that a lot of the narratives might not be accurate, etc. And also about the dangers of what they're sharing, how the algorithms work, how they can be pulled into these communities and be, engaging with problematic content without necessarily realizing what they're doing.
So you mentioned about media literacy. How should educators or parents think about digital and media literacy in the context of this kind of extremist content? What can we do?
Again, it's really hard. I do actually have recommendations about this in the book because in the book I do state there is no one size fits all. This is what I've done. This is what I found helpful if people want to use it as a template. So for me, I do outreach in colleges, schools, etc. And that doesn't just focus on the children or the teenagers, it focuses on the parents, the caregivers, the teachers. So I also provide training for the teachers at the colleges and notes, I guess it would be notes or work packages, resources that the parents can have about gateway figures, symbols, who to watch, what to watch, how gaming is working, how the manosphere is working, things like that. But the problem is that there is nothing embedded into our curriculum at the moment. You would have to, if you wanted to do something widespread, get in through the curriculum that already exists, rather than trying to add something, I think. Also, when you go into colleges and schools, you're only there for one day. You might only get a few certain classes. It's only me at a random college. And you'd have to be doing it consistently because the online world moves so quickly and the symbols change, the hashtags, trends, etc. So it's really hard with digital literacy to be able to keep on top of it in a way that would be universal. So I think that's a huge problem with digital literacy. So a lot of it, I think, is about letting young people know how the technology is working and how that can influence what you see, why that's problematic, like they used to do with the news when, I was at college, where you'd be showing different newspapers and be told this one might not be the best one to read, and do it more about digital evolution. But there are so many interesting conversations to be had about digital literacy because often the students outpace the caregivers and teachers, and then also some of the most vulnerable victims to this type of content aren't young people, they're actually older people. And we've seen with QAnon and trad wife subcultures that it's actually middle-aged white women that are the most susceptible to it. So it's about coming together and thinking of a strategy that's going to be effective whilst also taking into account that all ages are vulnerable. It's not just young researchers. Like, you get this argument with researcher safety as well, right? The idea that it's only the ECRs and the PhDs that are at risk, when actually, when you've been doing it for longer, you've exposed yourself to so much more content, and it's almost as if the risk is kind of not seen to be something that affects you anymore. So I think that assuming that it's a problem that is for the youth is like not the best way to go either, because there's all these people that are vulnerable, especially now, because like I was saying, this is everywhere. It's in your home. Everyone's constantly on TikTok. Everyone's constantly on Instagram Reels, like every day. And it's constant, right? Whereas before, it might be that your parents read the paper in the morning, and then that was it, and you do the 10 o'clock news. Whereas now it's like constant, right? So yeah, I think it's really hard. I don't have the answers, and in the book, all I do is say what I have done, and to try and open up the conversation. Like, what has everyone else done? What can we actually do? What's been effective? What's not been effective? Like, I think it's a big conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, definitely. And thinking about what others have done and I guess sharing that good practice, have you seen any positive examples of maybe online communities or even platforms themselves resisting or subverting far-right propaganda?
I don't think it works as effectively. I know that Moonshot are doing some great work in redirecting content. I think it works better for jihadist content than it does far-right. Actually, most of the things that I've seen have been geared towards jihadist content rather than the far right. I think that a lot of people try their best and a lot of people have good intentions, but I think that the way that this type of content is regulated, how different countries have different law enforcement, the way that different regulators will block certain platforms makes it incredibly difficult. So, you know, we've got legislation, we've got the TCO, we've got the Online Safety Act, we've got people that are trying to get platforms to comply. And there are people that are doing great things, like, you know, some of the tech giants have added more fact checkers, more AI content moderation. But yeah, I personally think that none of that is as effective as trying to get people to understand and question what they're actually looking at.
And moving forward, what role do you see for interdisciplinary collaboration, for example, criminology, computer science, and history, in future research or platform moderation?
Yeah, so all of the work that I do champions interdisciplinary and multi-stakeholder approaches. So my inspiration is a guy called Matthew Syed. He wrote a book called Rebel Ideas. Again, highly recommend, absolutely phenomenal work. And it's this idea that you're never going to solve a big problem with people that think like you. So it's all about cognitive diversity, right? So obviously when we talk about AI and these big problems, it's about the demographic diversity, having people of different ages, genders, ethnic identities, races, right? Having all those voices at the table. And this became really prominent with AI, right? When you were like telling people 10 years ago, when everyone started worrying about algorithmic accountability and algorithmic transparency, it was like, oh yeah, we have all these people, all these white men making the algorithms, and then they're telling you what the algorithms are, and then they're auditing their own algorithms. And it was like, oh, demographic diversity is really, really important to those conversations, but so is cognitive diversity. Having people that think completely opposite to you is so beneficial when you are trying to solve these huge problems, right? Which online radicalization, I would argue, comes into that. So the argument that's really made is that we have to move out of our silos and do this. So I'm doing this on a project at the moment to do with data centers and their ability for them to become targets for terrorism, right? And I've got law enforcement, intelligence agencies, civil society, water sustainability experts. And it is about, you have to bring all of those seats to the table, and you have to have people that say, no, you're wrong. This is why. This isn't going to work. and not be offended by the fact that people tell you that your initial ideas might be wrong. And I think that is so important for these kind of conversations, that not only obviously having that type of diversity where you've got different voices to represent that demographic diversity, but also that you have people that I try and find people in my research all the time that I know have completely different ideas to me and will think the complete opposite. So we can sit there and think, right, what if this is how you think and this is how I think? How can we bring these ideas together to actually try and understand this phenomenon and prevent it? And that is really hard, because people don't like to be told that they're wrong. And they don't like to be told that the things that they're doing are potentially problematic, which is why with multi-stakeholder research, you often get conflict between civil society and law enforcement, or tech companies and civil society, or, vice versa, because people don't want to hear that they're not doing something right. But that's where we need to go. We have to, realize that the whole idea is greater than the sum of its parts, and that we need to work together more. We're never going to get out of it if we don't take inspiration from other sectors, I think. But that's just what I argue.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it is fundamentally about leaving your ego at the door, isn't it? And living together.
Like people telling you, when I started this data center project, I had ideas in my head of what the results would be, and nothing at all. And it's just people telling you what you've said is moronic. Like, people that are experts in that field that have looked at that for decades, saying to you, that's not how that works. That's not how sustainability. It just opens your mind to so many different things.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting, isn't it? And, you've mentioned some of the research you're working on, but I wonder what gaps remain in this field and what are you interested in exploring next?
Yeah, so I'm looking at Gen AI at the moment on a grant for Responsible AI UK, tracking United Kingdom propaganda. So I think that I made this point in our white paper, but I did a project for looking at Southport. And I finished data collection for that in May last year. And I finished data collection for this project in February this year. That's not that long between. That's not even a year between the data. And the data has moved at such a rapid extent. The difference between the AI then and the AI now is so... I can't even explain to you. It is so different. And they're still trying to think about what we said in Southport. Like, that's what I mean. Like, and the argument that I make is that the data that I'm showing you today is yesterday's problem. By the time we even get to converse about this, that's the pace at which it's moving and the technology is becoming available, and the ability for the AI to have these beautiful, really powerful narratives about how people in this country feel about themselves and the world around them, and it's done so beautifully. This is a really, really big problem. So for me, I'm looking very much at that evolution and rapid evolution of Gen AI, the problems that come with that, and also the additional components of audio visuals and how and why they're so effective. So like the music, how that affects the ranking. And can we have some sort of Shazam-based content moderation that picks up those songs and flags them as being problematic? Because at the moment, nothing like that is being looked at as much. And I think that feeds into it a lot. So yeah, I guess what I'm looking at the moment is very much on the wider harms of Gen AI and how we can potentially combat that. But as I said, it's moving so rapidly that even the recommendations I've done for this will be out of date now, and I did them 2 weeks ago, because it's just escalated at a rate that no one in regulation can ever keep up with. So, yeah.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you very much, Dr. Ashton Kingdon, for joining us today and for sharing with us your research and knowledge. It has been truly insightful.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to talk.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you as well to our listeners. We encourage you to continue the discussion by visiting the British Society of Criminology Hate Crime Network's website, or you can find us on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn and Blue Sky, where you can find all our resources, publications and information on our upcoming events. Thank you very much.